All right, in this video, I'm going to be going over a little game with you, okay? It's called Can You Spot the Difference? So I'm going to show you two pictures, one from last year and one from, I believe it was yesterday. And you're going to tell me what the difference is that you spotted. And before the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how you can grow more muscle, feel amazing during a fat loss phase, right? Trying to lose some weight, and also how to naturally manipulate your hormones to get you the most muscle growth, most fat loss, most energy, better sleep, and so you can show up as a great dad. And not only that, fucking crush it at work. That's what we want. So I'm going to show you this picture real fast, and I'm just totally riffing. So if you hear me say or don't judge me too much, okay? So here's the photo. So this right here is from last year, and it was around the same day. I want to say it was like March 16th or something. I had a gnarly fucking mustache. And this was March 27th. Yeah. So it's 6:30 in the morning. So right after my workout. Both of these are with a pump. Okay. And obviously, right off the rip, you would say, oh, you pretty much look exactly the same. And that was my first thought. I was like, oh my God, dude, I look exactly the same a year later. Like, that kind of sucks. But I want to point out a couple key differences. So, number one, my shoulders are a little bit more capped. I have a good shadow there, but you can actually see the shadow starting to creep up, which means that my front delt is better. My bicep is bigger. You can't see the separation here, maybe because of the shadows, but you can see the separation a lot more in depth here. And overall, my abs are a little bit bigger, right? A little bit blockier. I am holding a little bit more fat, and I'll get to that in a second. Okay. So visually, though, I mean, if you look at this, you're like, all right, you don't look much better. One could actually argue, all right, you're actually leaner on the left-hand side than you are here. Now, here's what I want to point out. I'm pretty much identical body fat percentages, maybe 0.5% off, okay? And the lighting is a little bit different. I do miss my mustache, but here's what I want to point out. Number one, I was smart enough to get rid of a gold chain. I'm just kidding. Number one, okay? Number one is the fact that I'm 194 pounds in this picture on the left, and I'm 201 pounds over here, which one could probably argue that I've put on 6 pounds of muscle, maybe 5 because I'm a little bit leaner, 5 pounds of muscle in the last year, which for being years into the game is really solid. Okay, most people after your first year, second year, I'm 5 years in now. After your first year, second year, putting on anywhere between 2 and 5 pounds is like a good year, by the way. Okay, so most people who are like, I put on 10 pounds of muscle and I've been training for 10 years, it's like you took steroids. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to point out. Okay, the next thing I want to point out is purely subjective, and this is why I'm making this video. It's not about the looks. It's not about, this guy over here being leaner or lighter or weight or anything. But there's a couple key things that I want to share with you, which is really why we want to work out in the first place. Okay. Yes, we can get shredded and that's awesome. But if you do it feeling like shit, you're tired, you're irritable, it starts to take away from your business, it starts to take away from your family, it starts to take away from your clients, you're lethargic, you start to sleep worse, and you hate the process, then what is it even for? Okay, that was me. This was me doing a bodybuilding competition strictly for the sake of doing a bodybuilding competition. I wasn't doing it because it was a lifelong dream. I wasn't doing it because it was going to boost my confidence. I'm a confident guy. I didn't need to stand up on stage in a bathing suit and have other people say, you're not good enough or you are good enough or whatever. And also, I was doing it just for the sake of having an external motivator to get me to lose some fat, right? Which is why a lot of people do bodybuilding shows. I'm not negating that, okay? But what I'm pointing out here is that I was working out a ton and I was doing it just for the sake of something external. I didn't like it. I didn't like the program that I was on. I wasn't really enjoying it. I was working out 6 days a week lifting weights, 6 days a week of doing cardio, anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on how far out from the bodybuilding show. I think at this point I was probably doing 30 to 40 minutes per day. So now I'm taking that away from my family. I'm taking that away, cardio, I'm taking that away from working and making money. And also, I hated cardio because the cardio that I have to do would either be an incline walk or Stairmaster. And it wasn't my favorite. I'll do it if I have to. I love to do it on my rest days now, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But the other thing I want to point out here is this is 6 days a week, twice a day. This is 4 to 5 days a week, once. These are 60 to 70 minute workouts. These are 40 to 60-minute workouts. So the question then becomes, Brian, how did you put on 6 pounds of muscle, working out less frequently, and enjoying the process? And you're not crashing your hormones. Well, that's why I'm making this video. So stick with it, okay? And we're gonna get into the game here. All right, let me go over to my whiteboard, zoom in on my face. Good to see you. All right. So a couple things. I got my notes here. All right. There's three key factors that I implemented in the last year that spiked my growth. Okay. The first one was understanding the reverse relationship between exercise and muscle growth. Yes, it is an inverse relationship. And what I mean by that is that when one is up, the other is down. When, it's like a seesaw. So if you're working out 6 days a week, twice a day, that means that your rest and recovery is very low because you only have 1 day to recover. That also means that muscle growth really slows down. And I used to think the more I worked out, the more muscle I'm going to gain. But the thing is that muscles are not made in the gym. Yes, you stimulate muscle growth in the gym, but you don't create muscle in the gym. You actually break it down. And so there's a massive inverse relationship. There's also a massive inverse relationship between the amount of stress that you put on your body and the amount of muscle that you're capable of growing, right? If your stress levels are through the roof, and this could be chronic stress from work, this could be work in the gym, this could be stressful at home, all of those things, the more stressed out you are, the more cortisol you have in your bloodstream, the less growth you're going to have. So what I started to understand was if I could actually increase my recovery, not just on a week-to-week basis, on a daily basis, and even on a set-to-set basis, I'll get to that in a second, I could actually see more muscle growth. Now, I still need enough stimulus to build muscle, right? But I also needed enough recovery so that way all of that hard work that I'm putting in the gym, all those more early mornings and sore workouts and reps that look like this, right? Like we're actually worth something, because I will tell you from 2023 to 2024, I didn't grow any muscle. Zero. It was one of the most frustrating realizations that I ever had was that when I walked on stage, I did 2 bodybuilding shows back to back, 2023, 2024. Same weekend, same show, same everything. I weighed exactly the same. And I looked almost exactly the same. I actually looked worse the second one, but that's a totally different story for a different time. Okay. That was one of the most frustrating realizations. And then I realized that that type of training isn't going to get me where I want to go. And it also sucked and it wasn't enjoyable. I wasn't having fun, which meant that I was slowly losing motivation in the gym. So understanding the inverse relationship. Now, we've all been told, if you remember way back in the day, right? You were told high reps for toning, low reps for muscle growth, okay? The truth is that anywhere between 5 reps and 30 reps can be muscle building, providing you're getting as close as possible to failure, right? Without actually failing. Okay, they usually say anywhere between 1 and 3 reps of failure is where muscle happens, okay, or muscle grows. But I used to do these like sets of 20 while being in a calorie deficit, thinking, all right, I'm burning all these calories. Like, this is great. I'm going to tone up. That's awesome. And what ended up happening was it would just crush my glycogen levels, drive up my ghrelin. I'm sorry, not ghrelin. It would drive up my hunger hormone. So I would be hungry all the time. And I would want to skip out of my meals and eat whatever I wanted. And I'd have those late night cravings. And I would have trouble sticking to a diet. I would have trouble with overeating. And it just drove me nuts. And these were all issues that I wanted to solve. And I'm going to show you how I solved them today. So not only that, I also used to do 60-second to 90-second rest breaks because I was like, I only have like an hour. Let me get as much volume in as humanly possible. But the problem with that was because I wasn't recovering well enough from set to set, I would like fall off like after 1 or 2 sets where, I might be on bench press doing 150 pounds for sets of 15 and crushing it. But after 2 of those sets, I could stay at 150 and I'd only get like 8. My muscles just wouldn't fully recover. And one might say, oh man, that means you're building muscle, dude. You're pushing close to failure. But I'm not pushing close to failure from what's called motor recruitment, right? So if this is a muscle, So the actual fibers weren't being so stimulated where they would grow. It's that inside the fibers, if we zoom in, okay, what makes the fibers contract is something called glycogen. And so you only have a certain amount of glycogen in the muscle. And so when I'm only taking 60-second breaks, this is going down, going down, going down. The mechanical tension itself on the actual muscle fibers, what actually causes muscle growth, wasn't even being stimulated. They just had a harder time contracting because I was running my workouts with like this much glycogen. Whereas if I would have just kept my glycogen higher, let the muscle recover and convert my fat, convert the food, and I'm going to get into actually what you do during your workout, then what would end up happening is I would have higher glycogen stores up here. I'll use a different color, right? I would have higher glycogen stores up here, which means that my muscles would have an easier time contracting. I'd be able to lift more weight and recruit more motor units across my muscle, which is what actually builds muscle. I'm going to pause there. Do you need to go back and listen to that? Long story short, if you do, great. If you don't, let's keep rolling. I also had to get to the realization, okay, that I'm getting older. And because I'm getting older, I have to factor in more understanding of fatigue management and making sure I'm not overtraining my muscles, right? Now, I'm not that much older. I'm not that much older. Okay, I'm only 33, but at the same time, 33 is very different than 25. Okay, so what do I recommend? What I recommend is that you do anywhere between 4 to 5 workouts per week. I would recommend something like an upper lower split if you only want to work out 4 days a week. If you want to work out 5, I would probably do push, pull, legs, shoulders, right? Because we want that V shape, and then like arms, right? This is obviously for dudes, okay? Women would probably do legs twice, and that's fine. So if you do this for 5, or you do upper lower times 2, right, for 4 workouts, and do upper push, upper pull, lower push, lower pull, all that other good stuff, okay? It's not that complicated. And if you need a good workout, I don't know, go to ChatGPT or something, okay? Or text me and I'll hook you up, okay? That being said, that's what I would recommend, especially if you're over the age of 30. You do not need to be working out twice a day, 2 times a week. I promise you, you'll drive yourself fucking insane. The second thing that we had to master here was our metabolism, okay? And what do I mean by metabolism? Most people think this is just, okay, food, fat loss, right? Like, oh, am I losing enough fat? Like, if I eat food, am I gonna lose fat? All that stuff. When they have extra weight, they're like, oh, my metabolism's all messed up. My metabolism's broken. It's not. Okay, it's not broken, it's inefficient. If it was broken, you'd be dead. You wouldn't be able to watch this video, okay? Your metabolism is not broken, it's inefficient based on what you're feeding it. Like any biological or kinetic system, okay, you have to work on its efficiency and its ability to process and do the things that it's supposed to do. Well, let's really quickly talk about what a metabolism is. Very simple. This is a cell. Within every cell that we have mitochondria. Mitochondria create 2 things, ATP and waste, right? Because matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So food, it gets digested by the gut. All those nutrients then go into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria says, okay, this is used as energy, ATP. This is used as waste, right? This is the byproduct of me converting that food into fuel. Now, what can end up happening here is based on the foods that you're eating, other sort of stressors, okay? This could be physical stressors. This could be emotional stressors. Anyone ever gain weight because you were having a stressful time at work, right? This can also be chemical stressors, okay? There's plenty of stuff proven that things like seed oils. Now, look, by the way, when I say that, I don't mean that never touch a seed oil ever again. First of all, good luck. What I'm saying is, like, if everything you're eating has seed oils in it, I'd probably check that, right? But even things like the soap that you use, the shampoo that you use, all of these things are chemical stressors. Doesn't mean that they're bad, but our body only has a certain capacity in its ability to handle these stressors, okay? So when everything starts piling up, and this quote unquote box over here or node or whatever starts to overflow, that's when we get things like weight loss resistance, slower metabolism. This is what happens. And age is also here, right? Age, that's a physical stressor on the body. right? All of these things can stress your body out, so it has a hard time processing and completing the biological system that it's designed to complete. So, with that being said, right, what we want to do is we want to eat as many foods as possible that create the most amount of energy and the least amount of waste. What types of foods are those? These are foods that are obviously single ingredient. They're typically high test producing foods. Think beef, right? They're high nutrient. So this is my one gripe with, I used to eat chicken breast all day long. And while it's great on protein and great on macros, it has a very poor micro factor, right? Same thing with like carb balanced tortillas. Sure, the macros are tits. They're awesome. They're great. But there's no micronutrient balance. And so when you start to think about, all right, if I take care of my micros, the macros will take care of themselves, right? Then I will improve my metabolism. And that means that I can eat more food and still have fat loss, right? So for me to get to, going back to this picture here, for me to get to 194 pounds, I needed to eat 2,000 to 2,100 calories per day. I'm eating 2,500 calories right now, and I'm losing fat. I was actually 200 pounds this morning. I was 201 in this photo. So that's what I mean by an efficiency model, okay? Now, that means that I'm having a more of a thermogenic effective food, okay? Like I'm burning more calories just digesting my food. I'm also building more muscle, which increases metabolism because when you have more mitochondria in the body, you can process more food. But the thing is when you have all of these other things that create more waste, right? All of these physical, emotional, and chemical stressors, what ends up happening is it creates inflammation on a literal cellular level, like the outer wall of the cell becomes inflamed. And then all these little receptors here, okay, get fucked up. Things can't bind to it. So you could have the most beautiful blood work in the world, right? We'll use red here and we'll say, look at all this blood, right? That's the stuff we get drawn. And your doctor says, hey man, your blood work's great. Your blood work looks amazing. And we can have things like, insulin in there and test levels in there looking amazing, but yet you're still tired, yet you still feel like shit, yet your body's not changing, and your doctor's like, nah, dude, like blood works great, but you just know that something's just a little bit off. That's because all of this stuff can be in here: your nutrients, your supplements, your TRT, your fucking insulin, all that stuff. It has a hard time then binding to the actual outside of the cell because the outside of the cell is so inflamed. But when you eat single ingredient foods, you eat high test producing foods, you eat high nutrient foods, this inflammation goes down and then the cell works like this, right? Here's our mitochondria, here's the waste, energy, all that. The waste gets out, which means all that stuff that's floating around the blood, all those nutrients, all those supplements, all those protein, all that stuff, when the waste can actually get out because there's no inflammation, what do you think happens with all the good stuff? It can get in, right? So because all the good stuff can get in, now you're actually going to start to see physiological changes because you're changing the literal cells. Our cells make up our muscles, our cells make up our organs and our muscles make up our body. So if we want to actually change our body, we have to literally change on the cellular level. And this is what I talk about with metabolism mastery, increasing our overall level of ATP, reducing the overall amount of waste by eating single ingredient foods. What this also allows to happen is things like, if many men these days are having like hyperthyroid, right? Their body is producing or hyperinsulin. Okay, they're producing so much insulin, they're producing so much of their TSH, thyroid hormone, and the body's overcompensating in the bloodstream to make up for the fact that these receptors are starting to get fucked up. And then it shows up as a thyroid issue, it shows up as insulin resistance. When in reality, it's none of those things. It's just inflammation on the outside of the cell. And if we change up our diet, start working out, start taking care of the body, reduce overall stress, improving sleep, everything that we do in Unbreakable Dads, right? We're genuinely are changing people on a cellular level. That allows your insulin, your TSH, all that stuff to bind to the cell better, which means you're changing on a molecular level. Change the molecules. What shows up in real life, 3D universe, changes as well. That makes sense? Also, if we want to create more ATP and have more energy, we need to eat the types of foods that create energy. So you could, if we look at it on a macros level, we can look at it like, okay, there's energy producing macros, and then there's physicality producing macros. Okay, this is protein. You guessed it, right? Energy is carbs and fat. Carbs, fat. Okay, great. So what most guys do is they say, I'm going to eat 1.0 to 1.2 grams per protein of my body weight. And that's great, but what that does is that leaves this feeling a little bit lower. So what I'm doing for a lot of my clients, what I'm doing for myself, and what's gotten me the best results is not 1.0, it's understanding MED. What's the minimum effective dose of protein that I need to be able to build muscle, so that way I can create more energy in my body from the food that I'm eating, which also allows me to eat more tasty foods, more foods that keep me fuller longer, and allows me to eat more fat and more carbohydrates, which that's the salt of life, baby. Look, don't get me wrong, I love a steak, but like also being able to eat a ton more fat, meaning I could eat fattier steaks and things like that, that makes it even better versus just like lean cut flank steak or top sirloin all the time. Okay. So now, what I'm not saying is that calories in, calories out is bad. That is not what I'm saying. This, okay, calories in, calories out, this is still king, right? That's a crown, by the way. There's some jewels. Calories in, calories out is still king. But when you have a more efficient metabolism, you can eat more calories and still lose weight because it's easier to create a deficit, right? Would you rather drive across country in a 10-gallon gas tank car that's got 5 gallons of gas in it, or would you rather drive across the country in a 25-gallon gas tank car that's got 22 gallons in it? Both of them are in a deficit. One's just going to get you there with a lot more confidence and a lot more energy and a hell of a lot easier, right? Less stopping. It's the name of the game, right? We don't want to keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping. So what we want to do is we want to eat single ingredient foods, high test producing foods. If you need help understanding what those things are, all you have to do is go in the link in the description, okay? Click on my Instagram, tell me you watched this video and say, hey, can you give me, send me like metabolic mastery, all right? If you send me on Instagram, metabolic mastery, I will send you a comprehensive guide that breaks down exactly what you can eat that is going to maximize your metabolism. And I will do it for free. It costs $0. All it takes is just a quick DM on Instagram, okay? That being said, I would also change up your macros, right? For protein, I would shoot for 0.85. Oops, that's supposed to be there, right? 0.85 grams per pound of body weight. I would then factor in fat and say that should be 30% of your calories. And then your carbs are the rest. Okay? That's how I would do your macros. And if you're curious, okay, well, how many calories? Okay, that means that you haven't watched any of my other YouTube videos, and you need to go watch those because I've given you this calculation a million fucking times. But take your body weight and multiply it by 11. That's how many calories you need to eat. Based on that, take 0.85 per grams of body weight. That's how much gram of protein. Your fat should be 30% of whatever this number is. And then from there, you can just leave the rest to carbohydrates. Okay. And if you don't know how many calories in a carbohydrate, just go watch more of my videos. I give it all away. That's why I'm making this video as well. Okay. So let's talk about the third factor, right? That was dramatic in my ability to build muscle and increase my metabolism. And it's natural hormone manipulation. Okay. Natural hormone manipulation. And my handwriting is fucking terrible. I hope you got that, right? Natural hormone manipulation. Okay. So there are a few key hormones that you need to learn how to manipulate properly to be able to create the most amount of muscle. Now, the list goes on and on, but I'm only going to talk about one in this video because I think we're already at like 20 some odd minutes here, okay? And your attention span isn't that long because you've been scrolling through Instagram and TikTok too much, and you need to fucking get back to work because I know you're watching this on your lunch break. So anyways, the big one that we're going to talk about is insulin. Okay. Now this has been demonized time and time again by the keto zealots and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, don't spike your insulin. Don't spike your insulin. Do you know what the biggest, most effective muscle growth hormone there is on the planet that is produced in your body? I'm sure you're like, yeah, testosterone. No, sir. It's insulin. Insulin builds the most amount of muscle, which is why every single bodybuilder, every single fucking monster that you see is, yeah, sure, they're shooting up tests. Don't get me wrong. That's actually more for a recovery standpoint. When they're in the gym, they're literally injecting insulin. Now, I don't know about you. I don't want to be finishing up a set, popping a needle in my fucking delt and being like, let me get my insulin in, especially when it's a naturally occurring hormone. So here's the caveat on this, okay? If you have more than 20 pounds to lose, okay, then you do not do what I'm about to tell you. You can actually end the video now, and I will let you know if you're like really looking to lose more than 20 pounds and you're serious about it and you're like, wait, that actually makes a lot of sense and that's super time efficient the way that he works out. And also I have tried a bunch of different things and I have this weight loss resistance. Like I keep hitting this same number over and over again and then just bouncing right back up. Like I went from 250 to 230 and then I just can't seem to break through. I'm just plateauing. And you're an executive, you have more than one kid, you're struggling with balancing everything on your plate and you're just so tired of trying to figure out exactly why your body isn't helping you, isn't losing fat, and you just want somebody who can write you a customized program based on what you're looking for, hold you accountable, encourage you when you need it, and also give you the kick in the ass when you need it, because you are somebody that, hey, if I just know what I need to do, I'm going to do it, then I'm your guy. Go to the link in the description and book a call. If you have 10, 15-ish some odd pounds to lose, watch the rest of this video. This will work for you. If you have 25 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50, 100, this will not work for you, okay? So that being said, let's talk about insulin. So with insulin, okay, what we want to do is we want to actually spike this during the workout, okay? During the workout. So when does insulin grow? Like when does our body produce insulin? When it's processing carbohydrates. When we're processing carbohydrates, the body naturally produces more insulin, so that way it can use those carbohydrates, right? Like think of insulin as the bus, and it stops, it whoop, opens up the fucking bus and is like, come on in, and it's all just little carbohydrates that want to go get deposited, whether it's fat tissue or whether it's muscle tissue. Now, because we're working out, the body is using up glycogen. Glycogen comes from carbohydrates. I'll just put glycogen, okay? So glycogen comes from carbohydrates. And so when we're working out, we're pumping iron, we're using up glycogen. So when we consume carbohydrates while we're working out, those carbs go to the muscle because we've signaled to the body, hey, we're consuming glycogen, we need glycogen, bring that glycogen up over here. So rather than making a right to your love handles, it makes the left and goes to your pecs. Make sense? Okay. Now, we want to do this in a very specific manner. So if you work out first thing in the morning, or even if you work out at night or whatever, most people think, all right, I'm going to take my pre-workout and then I'm going to go work out. And don't get me wrong, I love pre-workout. It's amazing. But one of the things I also do pre-workout is I will have a whey protein shake. Whey protein allows your body to access more adrenaline, okay? And when adrenaline is up, cortisol is up. When these two hormones are pumping, when you're working out, so you do this about 30 minutes before, okay? When adrenaline and cortisol are up, you get the most amount of motor recruitment. That goes back to this over here, right? We want the most amount of motor recruitment on the muscle. So we're manipulating our hormones here a little bit. By the way, okay, if you have more than 20 pounds to lose, the whey protein before the workout, that still works for you. But what I'm about to get into doesn't, okay? So the adrenaline goes up, the cortisol goes up, and that's great. You're getting more motor recruitment. Excellent, okay? Now, this can also tip over. And if this starts to tip over and we have too much adrenaline, too much cortisol, you're listening to heavy metal and you're thinking about, saving your family from, somebody breaking into your house, okay? And that's the mental state you're in, right? Adrenaline's up, cortisol's up, all that stuff, okay? Once it tips over, you actually get more tired and you have worse motor recruitment, okay? You flooded your entire adrenal gland, okay? Now, so what we want to do to mitigate that is we want to consume sugar. And when I say sugar, I'm talking about candy. I'm talking about like fruit juice. I know that seems counterintuitive because every fat loss account on Instagram and YouTube is like, avoid that stuff at all costs. It's what's making you fat. No, you just need to learn how to use it right, okay? Because when you consume sugar, what that does is that levels off because you're chewing, which releases dopamine, which is an antagonist to this. Like dopamine's the happy hormone, right? Adrenaline and happy, they kind of have an inverse relationship. So it curbs this. So it allows you to get highest motor recruitment while also stopping it from tipping over. Not only that, okay, all those carbohydrates are getting deposited into your muscle as glycogen. So you're going to have stronger, better workouts. You're going to have more motor recruitment. And by default, by having more motor recruitment and having stronger workouts, you will push the muscle farther, and you will create the adaptation necessary to be able to lift enough to grow muscle. Okay? So, that being said, how much sugar do you do? Okay, it's 0.2 grams per pound of body weight. Okay, so if you're 200 pounds, okay, that would be 40 grams while working out. Now, the timing comes into play. So what you'll do is 30 minutes beforehand, you'll have this whey protein shake and you'll have your pre-workout, okay? You're going to go in, you're going to warm up real quick, and you're going to do your first set. I'm sorry, not first set. You're going to do your first entire exercise. So if it's, 3 sets of 10, you do all 3 sets of 10. And you're going to fucking push it here, dude. It's typically your best exercise, right? You typically have like that, whatever that first exercise is, that's typically the best because you have the most amount of energy. And you're going to fucking push it, dude. Like really push it. Really get all those receptors turned on. Then as soon as you're done with this is when you want to incorporate the candy. Okay? So I eat gummy worms and I drink pomegranate juice and I eat 40 grams roughly right now, sometimes 45 on leg day. Okay. And that's what I do in between my workouts. And that allows me to recover faster. I spend anywhere between 2 minutes to even upwards of 3 minutes to sometimes, if it's a super hard set, even 4 minutes in between sets, which that allows me to completely recover, fully refill my glycogen stores, fully produce enough ATP, and I go into each set with that same vigor that most people only bring for their very first set of their very first exercise. Okay? This allows you to get in and out of the gym in about 45 minutes because if you brought the same vigor, intensity, and all that stuff to every single set, you doing 10 to 12 sets would be fucking wiped. You would be wiped, dude. You'd be like, oh my God, dude, that was such a good workout. And you would actually build muscle versus just sweating your ass off and accomplishing nothing. And that's why you look the same year over year, just like I did when I was in this photo, right? I looked exactly the same the year previous. So with that being said, if you are a super busy dad, super busy executive, and you're like, wow, this all sounds really good, but how do I actually implement it, right? Just, rewatch the video, take a couple key things, implement it, note the results. And if you're somebody who's just like, man, this all sounds really fucking awesome, and clearly Brian knows what he's talking about, and he could customize this for my life, the equipment that I have access to, the schedule that I have, right? My hectic lifestyle with all my friends, family, all that other good stuff, closing deals, deadlines, then go to the link in the description, click to book in a call, and I will show you how I can help you completely rewire your subconscious to be jacked, to be lean, to be healthy. We're going to do it in the most sustainable fashion possible. We're going to completely master your metabolism. We're going to naturally manipulate your hormones to get you feeling like your blood work will compete with your blood work from when you were 21. Okay? I know because my blood work makes 25-year-olds jealous. 33. So that's what you're looking for, and you want somebody who can kind of hold your hand through this entire process, go to the link in the description, book a call with me. I'm going to find out whether or not I think that I can actually help you on the initial call. It's just a quick 10 to 15 minute get to know you call. I want to know what your goals are, what you're struggling with. And if I feel like I can help you, then we'll dive into what a customized roadmap would look like. Other than that, you can also follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like these videos. And if you don't, then click away and never look at me ever again. I don't know. You tell me what you want to do. So have a great day. Peace.